Research shows that most parents learn parenting practices from their own parents and apply some of what they've seen and discard the rest. Practices their parents use stem from cultural or religious beliefs and values. If you would like the bond between you and your mother to be stronger and or reconciled, stick with us. Hello, I'm Auriane Itangishaka and this is Our Voices. On today's episode, we'll take a closer look at the relationships between mothers and daughters in Africa and how they can be supported and strengthened. We will examine cultural context, available support systems, as well as tips and recommendations from experts. First, we hit the streets of Nigeria and ask a few mothers and daughters if they could confidently share stories, feelings, and experiences with each other, and here's what they had to say.
I don't share things with my mom because when I was small, like if we should do any single mistake, they do beat us. So because of that tension and that fear, I'm always kind of scared to tell her some things about my personal self, like concerning my issue, and it has really caused some like kind of damages in my relationship like instead of me to tell her and she meant like she should correct me on some things like don't do this, don't date this person, pray and all of that. Nobody should give me advice. So I make decision on my own, and sometimes and it has caused me a lot of mistakes and all of that.
I share things that matter most to me with my mom because I take my mom as my best friend. So I have ways of meeting her. Sometimes if she's eating, maybe in the morning or at evening, then when she's eating, I know she's relaxed. Then I'll go and sit by her side, put my head on her laps. Then I'll start discussing things that, matter most to me.
Yes, I share important things with my mom because she understands me. She knows what I'm feeling. She knows my pain. So when I talk to her, she knows what exactly I'm going through that moment. I have an issue with a friend or with an aunt or maybe someone like a guy maybe is asking me out now, for example now I asked her for advice, then she gives me advice on it also.
I don't share personal things with my mom because I might get a harsh response, so I rather keep it to myself. My parents don't really tell me anything I need to know concerning guys or things you need to know about guys. So it's just now I'm a little bit like closer to my mom, but there's something that I can't still tell her until when perfect times comes.
I'm not a strict mother because when you are strict, they tend to hide and probably try to, discuss when they have problems with their friends. Whatever it is, I encourage them to come to me. Whatever it is, they must come to me and then tell me, Mommy, this. We talk, we are like just partners, we are friends, we are everything. In fact, my room is open 24/7. Even when they are not around, you won't believe we have a WhatsApp group. I have a WhatsApp group with my daughters where we chat. 3 of us will be chatting like friends, like friends do chat.
Actually, my daughter is much more closer to the dad than me. Maybe proud to the nature of my job, being a journalist, not always being at home. But of recent, the pain of seeing my daughter being closer to the dad more than me was a very big concern to me. So I had to sit her down, talk to her, explain things to her that dad doesn't know much about a lady's life, her hygiene level, how to present herself. So of lately, I believe I'm much more closer to her now.
They confide in me a lot, so they tell me something personal, as I believe, because I'm lenient, I'm open to them, I'm friendly with them. But I know some girls used to hide things to their mothers, especially due to maybe if you're a mother and you begin to be harsh to your daughters, that means it's no go area. They won't be telling you anything.
Nigerian family life coach and long-time expert in this area, Charity Babatunde, talks about some of the factors that makes a relationship between mothers and daughters grow strong or sour. She speaks to me from Lagos. Now, Miss Charity, on the continent, due to culture and religious beliefs, what mistake do mothers make in rearing their daughters, which in turn weakens their bonds?
mothers tend to try to impose their ideas, their beliefs on the daughters. And of course, the daughters get quite resentful about it. One of the issues that's very big here is the issue of marriage. So you find out that from a very young age, it's like a mother is already grooming her daughter for marriage. So everything, learn how to wash your clothes so that you're a good wife, learn how to cook so that you're a good wife, learn how to do this. And the children are getting, or the girls, we call them children, but they're getting, what is all this pressure about marriage? And so you have a number of them saying, who told you I even want to marry? So that becomes an issue. Then there's also the issue of even watching their mothers who are married, who don't appear to be having the best life at all, either emotionally, financially, and they're wondering, why do I want to be like you? So what then happens is we're not talking to our daughters enough honestly. We're not being very honest with them about the fact of life. Mothers tend to also impose their ideas, their cultural and religious beliefs. One of the beliefs that's quite strong in the religious space is the issue of submission. But how often do we talk to our children about what it really means to submit? Does submit mean you sit down and take physical, verbal, emotional abuse and say, okay, because you're submitting? And then why do I have to feel that if I do not get married, I am not complete? African parents and then mothers are not very good communicators. And we really can't blame us. Sometimes it's the way we have been brought up and taught. So we tend to parent more by fear, by controlling. They then begin to push back. And that is what weakens them, because as they push back, they're losing out on a very vital relationship with their mother.
Now, obviously, it's a two-way relationship. What mistakes do daughters make?
So I think for me, the greatest one will be the fact that our children tend to feel that they know it all. And they feel that, look, your archaic ideas can't work with me. Yes, you may be older than me, doesn't necessarily make you wiser than me. I have access to information, I can get it. And then they tend to, in this cancel culture, right, they tend to cancel their moms and ostracize them and say, look, you know what, don't get in my space. I know what I'm doing. I want my privacy. What you're losing out on, what they're losing out on is a very great resource for them. If they're able to understand that, look, my mother is the way she is, one, because of exposure, two, because of the way she was brought up, three, she really does mean good for me. Yes, she's not communicating it in the best way. Then I think they would be a lot more patient with their mothers. So they're impatient. They feel they know it all. They ostracize their moms, and they end up seeking counsel from people who do not have, in most cases, do not have their best interest at heart. And of course, at the end of the day, it becomes a problem.
Charity Babatunde there, a counselor and a family life coach who will provide us with more of her expertise throughout today's program. At the end of our broadcast, she will give us tips on how African mothers can mend a broken relationship with their daughters. Now, puberty rite, a common cultural practice performed on adolescent girls to initiate them into womanhood, is a controversial and in some cases a painful practice done by grandmothers, aunties, and mothers for traditional and religious reasons. Alternative solutions are gaining traction in several African countries. Many Tanzanian women are advocating for new practices such as ARP to replace things like female genital mutilation. Charles Nkombe tells us more from Tanga, Tanzania.
Margaret Sendeo is one of the countless young girls in Tanzania who are forced into female genital mutilation every day. She's now 14 years old, but one of the bad memories that lasts forever in her mind was when, at the age of 11, she nearly bled to death when she was subjected to FGM.
Tulikuwa watoto 9, tukapelekwa kwenye nyumba ile ya sherehe.
We were 9 girls at the time we were taken into the ceremony house. Then one woman came and started cutting us. We bled a lot. Some were taken to hospitals. Others have died. I was not willing, and I can't wish to see other girls undergoing circumcision.
More than 25% of girls and women have undergone FGM in Tanzania. In rural pastoral communities, many girls are forced to undergo FGM by their parents in the hopes of securing a high dowry. Girls who have not undergone it are believed to be more promiscuous. Others are forced by their family in the name of tradition, an act without which they will be shunned in their villages.
If a girl get married without being circumcised, according to us Maasai, it's a sin. That's why if married, then a man finds out that a Maasai girl is not circumcised, he will reject her because he says she's still a young girl and not a woman.
To end the brutal tradition, healthcare non-profit AMREF introduced an alternative rite of passage with non-harmful traditional rituals to mark and celebrate a girl's initiation into womanhood. More than 15,000 girls have gone from girlhood to womanhood while avoiding FGM.
The alternative passage of age. Once they've come of age, we follow all their traditions but add one segment, teaching the girls on reproductive health and their gender rights. We are also celebrating the age passage ceremony together, but without circumcision. So, we've removed the circumcision segment, and we plan to remove it permanently.
This was also a way to make a living for circumcisers through getting money and gifts. Meanwhile, Margaret is celebrating the same ceremonies that led her into FGM 3 years ago. But now she's smiling as more than 450 girls of her age mark the passage of age without undergoing the hostile traditional act.
It's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll look at examples of what mothers and daughters can do to strengthen their bonds. We'll also share a story of an African-American mother-daughter duo that took a trip across the ocean to pay homage to their ancestors. Stay with us.
We're bringing women's voices to the conversation, and more than that, we're building a community of inclusion and empowerment.
Here in Kinshasa, campaigns to raise awareness against the spread of coronavirus are common, but getting that information to people who have no access to water, electricity, or money can be a challenge.
We are here at Kalerwe Market in Uganda, Kampala, where in this whole market, women are crying out for their situations to change.
For women, it will be better for us.
I think a big thing for me is just being able to say that when these protests are happening, does it turn around into policy?
Our kids are raped every single day.
This movement got the government to listen. It really was powerful because it showed what is possible when men and women band together and say, enough is enough.
It's not necessary anymore to climb on a car. I can be in any place to cheer with the people.
Welcome back, you with Our Voices. And we're talking about mother and daughter relationships. What are some of the things that a mother and a daughter can do to foster common ground? Perhaps a trip to the past? We share with you a story of a mother and a daughter who visited their family's slavery past in Ghana. A beautiful journey together that made them appreciate who they are. Let's look.
I couldn't believe I actually cried at the one of the Durbar ceremonies, but I feel much more connected, and I look at people and I say, oh my goodness, you know, that could have been, these people could be related to me. These people probably knew my grandmother's grandmother's grandmother. I mean, it blows me away. And then to actually be with groups that are identified through DNA, I just felt like it wasn't a coincidence.
Can I kiss your hand?
Yes.
And I think it's so interesting that we're retracing the footsteps of our ancestors. Like, exactly. I mean, there's something healing about that.
I think for me, it was yesterday when we went to the washing area and just seeing how the slaves were lined up and forced to walk really fast to keep up with the overseers who were on horses and mules. And then just taking that last bath, I kind of felt, you know, what my mom was saying about honoring the ancestors. Like, my ancestors wanted me to get into that water. And even just taking off my shoes and like feeling the same ground that they walked on, I just feel like I came out of that water a different person than I went into.
Another story we share with you is Fartoum Adan and Elwad Elman, a Somali mother and daughter duo. They are the 2020 recipient of the Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity. These two own and operate an organization that helps victims of sexual violence and child soldiers. Salem Solomon reports.
Fartun Aden and her daughter Ilwad Elman operate Elman Peace, an organization that helps victims of sexual violence and works to rehabilitate and provide job training to child soldiers in Somalia. The pair also created Sister Somalia, the first rape crisis center in the country, to offer protection, counseling, and medical treatments to victims. In 2010, when the crisis center began its work, Somali politicians, including the president, denied that rape existed in the country. It was considered a taboo subject to discuss.
The human suffering of women and girls was so tolerated, was so normalized, that it was an open secret in society.
When the group opened a hotline where victims could call for help, operators received threats of violence.
Our staff were arrested, harassed, our centers were shut down. This was just a mere 10 years ago. There was no profile of what a survivor of sexual violence looked like in Somalia then, from a 7-year-old woman to a 2-year-old child. Complete impunity.
Despite those setbacks, the crisis center has grown to include locally supported facilities in 9 regions of Somalia. The once ignored issue is now being debated in parliament by women lawmakers.
We still have so far to go, but we went from a place where you couldn't even talk about it, where there were no services available at all, to now having multiple service providers, where we have from a surge of 11% women in political participation to 24%.
In recognition of their work, they were awarded the 2020 Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity, a $1 million prize given each year to a person or group risking their lives to protect people in conflict. The award's co-founder says the prize is a recognition of people doing great work for humanity.
Symbol of hope, action, and transcendence.
We have to take a quick break, but do visit us on Instagram and Facebook and tell us some of your tips in strengthening the relationship between your mother or your daughter. Our handle is @VOA Our Voices. You can also send us a message on WhatsApp. Our number is right there on your screen. When we come back, we'll delve into the support systems that are available for both mothers and daughters. We talk to the Asante Africa Foundation, an organization providing services in 3 East African countries. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Our Voices. Let's briefly look at some of the support systems that are available for mother and daughter relationships. I also discussed this with life coach based in Lagos, Nigeria, Charity Babatunde.
As Africans, we're very communal. So what happens is that you have a lot of informal gatherings, right? Where you just hang out with your friends and somehow the conversation gravitates towards parenting. And you find out people shooting out their own experiences, sharing their own opinions and all that. The only danger with that is that it's not one size fits all for everybody. So somebody who's sharing her own experience with her daughter is not your daughter. The circumstances are different, upbringing different, dreams, aspirations different. So we need to be able to sift. Africa being quite religious. I'm Nigerian, and Nigeria being quite a very religious country, you find out that there are a number of religious organizations take up the issue of parenting. So they organize different programs where you can come and talk about your parenting and share tips. Prior to COVID and the lockdown and everything, one of the things I do quite a bit is going around schools to talk at their PTAs. And you find out that in a school of where you would have plus or minus 500 parents, only about 50 parents show up at these PTAs. So they're not taking as much advantage as they should. When they have a problem, they start running helter-skelter to look for solutions. Unfortunately, at that time, sometimes it's a bit more difficult to arrive at the kind of results that you would want.
Now, when there's an unwanted pregnancy from the daughter, how should mothers best handle such a situation?
Okay, so, I mean, even though I say this a bit tongue in cheek, but unwanted by who? Is the pregnancy unwanted by the mother or unwanted by the daughter? Because the daughter could actually have decided for whatever reason that I want this pregnancy. And the mother feels betrayed because the child is either she feels you've disgraced me in the society, in the church, in the mosque, wherever our religious, you're embarrassing me. So, but regardless of who wants the child, right? One of the things that I'm a big advocate of is creating safe spaces. I also advocate that mothers learn the art of absorbing shock, because anything you say can make or break that person forever. So once that information comes, obviously, if it's unwanted to the mother, which in most cases it would be, you're allowed to feel disappointed, but you must watch what you say in that moment. If the girl didn't want the pregnancy and it is a mistake and she already feels, look, how is my life ever going to get back on track? What she needs from you is your support.
Support indeed. Now, the Asante Africa Foundation is an NGO working in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. It has also found deep gaps in communication as well as the support needed for mothers and daughters. They have adopted some activities as a solution. Gloria Mushi, Monitoring and Evaluation Coordinator, speaks to me from Arusha, Tanzania, about activities such as mother-daughter forums.
These interventions on the mother-daughter relationship forums helps to boost or to foster the great communication between the mother and the daughter. The daughter fears or to speak to the mother or express their feelings, or the daughter fears to share the emotional and physical body changes that she passes through puberty, where the daughter fears to ask about the sexually transmitted diseases that she hears or heard from fellow students, where the daughter fears to seek or know or get aware of the HIV/AIDS diseases that are prevailing within our context, our communities. And within the African context, when it comes to girls' issues, especially sexual education, reproductive health, puberty, in order to empower the girl now to confidently and boost their self-esteem to express themselves. So we hold the meetings, the forums.
Now, I understand this is within the mother-daughter intervention program that you have at Africa Foundation. Now, what are the outcomes of the intervention?
The main aim of these interventions is to keep the girls in school and continue learning, including the supportive system, the partners, and the mothers who could act as the campaigners and advocating for all these changes. So our programs, our results shows that the girls have improved knowledge on body maturation. So 85% of students are reporting that they are confidently attending to class during menstruation, since they are aware now. They have been exposed to protective measures and techniques. How can they attend to school? And also 70% of students are reporting that they know the importance of preventing themselves from HIV and ways, what is HIV, ways, symptoms, and so they are able to prevent themselves from the sexually transmitted diseases, not only HIV, but also other sexually transmitted diseases that are prevailing within our communities. 95% of our students have financial understandings, and we also see within these financial understandings, they have started small projects that enables them to get a little amount of money in order to buy the pads, sanitary pads, and other protective materials when they're in their menses. That way, even the attendance of the class is increasing.
Now, what are some of the challenges that might be similar in the three countries that you work in, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, that might be similar in the mother-daughter relationships when Asante Foundation comes in to intervene?
Similar challenges that we find across the three countries that we're exposed of is the cultural norms that are prevailing within our societies. The cultural norms and the gender barriers that prevents girls from attending to school, such as the early marriages, Like you see, during COVID-19, Kenya, a lot of girls got pregnant. During COVID-19, a lot of girls were married off just because there was not the school were the safest place for them, and they are not attending to school. So these cases, these scenarios are similar to all of us. The gender-based violences, the female genital mutilations, those are similar, and the fear of the daughter expressing themselves concerning the emotional and body changes. As you know, African mothers, they are concentrated in the economic activities to feed their families. So you find little time is spent with the daughters to be able to share stories, feelings, and mentor them, act as their mentors and role models. The interventions that we're doing in Tanzania is also done in Kenya and Uganda.
Before we close, our family expert, Charity Babatunde, shares with us her advice on how to mend a broken mother-daughter relationship.
It's usually the fault of the mother. She either wasn't there at the early stages for the child. Yes, she was feeding and all that, but that emotional bond was not formed. The wedge had grown so wide, and then all of a sudden, bam, your daughter is 22. And even while you're there, you're dishing out instructions. And you're not actually having a relationship with your daughter. So what then happens is they're usually responsible for the crack in the relationship. What that means is that to repair it, you must be humble. You must be ready to humble yourself. Now, that's not really very African, for you to humble yourself and go to your daughter and say, I'm truly sorry. Will you forgive me? I know that I messed up. This is what I want. I really want, to have a relationship. It's not very African. Your daughter may actually be very scarred that it's difficult for her to just accept you like that. You need to know that it will take time. So what then happens is that you've humbled yourself, right? You have apologized to your daughter. You showed her how much she means to you. You expect her to immediately say, oh, I've been waiting for you all my life. Thank you for coming. And it doesn't happen. 1 month, 2 months, you then start getting resentful because you feel what happened. You need to understand that it takes time. And you need to be able, it took time for the relationship to get this broken. It will take a bit of time for it to be repaired.
That's all for us this week. We hope that you found today's program helpful in your relationships with your loved ones. On behalf of my colleagues here at VOA, until next time, have a wonderful day.